About 3 weeks ago, I attended my grandmother's funeral on Zoom, and it was an emotional experience. It got me thinking about their lives, how important what they did was for my family, not only me, but my cousins, my parents, everybody that they kind of guided along their journey and sent on their way. And I got in a really reflective mood, and I started thinking about my own life. And when I'm 85, 90, 95, I'm looking back on my life and my journey, what would I be most proud of? And I think it's boiled down for me, what I would be most proud of is a better life for my kids and their kids and their kids. I want to work on things now that set up the future generations of my family up for success and opportunity, and I want them to have a better life than I had. And it got me thinking about delayed gratification. So I talk about delayed gratification all the time on this podcast. I talk about how it's a 5-year plan, about how what we're working for, what we're working towards today might not pay us back for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And that's kind of the whole concept of the Sweaty Startup podcast, right? Everybody thinks that success and wealth and business can come overnight and that it can come quickly and that brilliant people just make it happen. But that's not the way it works. The media portrays Shark Tank and TechCrunch. They all portray entrepreneurs that have been overnight successes, brilliant ideas, and just outliers. But I'm convinced that that's not how it works. So when I think about delayed gratification and I think about working hard for, my own life 2 years from now, 3 years from now, I kind of think that sells the whole concept short, because delayed gratification can be over a much, much longer time frame than any of us can even imagine. Delayed gratification, it can span generations. The sacrifices that my parents and my grandparents made in the way they built and grew and learned and created things and culture and passed on lessons and knowledge and wealth and businesses. I didn't come from a super wealthy family, 2 middle-class parents. They were never paycheck to paycheck, but we were definitely not wealthy. We didn't have investment properties. We didn't own real estate. My dad was a construction manager and my mom was a school nurse. We lived on a little farm in Leopold, Indiana. But my grandparents, they grew up in poverty. They grew up hand to mouth, very, very poor. They were born right around the Great Depression, and the generations of Hubers before us were all poor, super impoverished. They were not landowners. They were not politicians. They were not anybody who would be known or looked up to in a community. And my grandfather broke that cycle. And this is the grandfather that lost his wife about 3 weeks ago. He broke the cycle. He joined the AT&T, the company AT&T as a union lineman, running poles, running wires. In 1967, he joined up, got that job, and he made the best of it. He worked it for 30 years, retired, and what he did was basically break that cycle of poverty. He broke that cycle of poverty. He instilled values of saving money, of investing money, of being wise with our money, and investing time and energy into starting a good career, building a good career, and really, it went from that, breaking the cycle of poverty, to my dad kind of instilling in me the concept of business and wealth. He sat me down at a kitchen table when I was 13 and showed me the ins and outs of how to run a lawn care business and how to bill clients, how to market to new clients, how to track my expenses, how to make a little bit of money. If it wasn't for that, I would never be here. If it wasn't for my grandfather breaking that streak of poverty, and if it wasn't for my dad passing on that knowledge about business, I never would have been here. So it's been an interesting reflection the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, of just realizing how delayed gratification really works, and how that long-term thinking, and how the work that I'm doing right now and the knowledge that I'm gaining and the principles that I'm going to pass on to my children are really going to affect generations to come long after I'm gone. And that's a very motivating and inspiring thing to think about. Some people, most Americans, the 50% of Americans that a $300 surprise expense would put into debt, that's a true fact that almost everybody in America has absolutely no money, no wealth, no freedom. They're all tied to an hourly or 9-to-5 job. The idea that you can break away from that, and the idea that you can build something, that you can build a business, that you can build wealth through real estate that makes you money while you sleep, those are realizations that if I can pass on to anybody, if I can pass on to you while you're listening to this, maybe you don't have a father who set you down at a kitchen table and taught you about business, but you have access to the internet, right? And you can listen to me. I think the more people who can understand that opportunity, and maybe they don't necessarily have it in them to capitalize on it, but they can understand that work that they do right now, they can start something that's not going to pay them back for 5 years. The average American thinks about the paycheck next Friday. They think about what kind of ATV or vehicle they can buy with their next paycheck, or what kind of dinner they can go out next time they get paid. How can I have the most fun right now as possible because life's short? That mindset that the average American has. How can we shift that thinking towards, I'm going to work on some things right now that are important, that are not urgent, that are a big deal, and that are going to make my life better 5 years from now. That's what delayed gratification is, and I think that is what one of the biggest keys to success is. We can do things all day that you get immediate satisfaction from. Being able to go out to a nice dinner, being able to go on a nice vacation, being able to buy a nice fancy this or that. But very few people can sacrifice that stuff in the near term and build something worth having in the long term. When I was starting Storage Squad, which has led me to this freedom and this amazing life that I have right now, when I was starting that business, all my friends who were graduating from Cornell with me went to New York City, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia to get big-time jobs. They were going to be making $130,000 a year. They were going to have all the money they needed, have all the fun they wanted. And that was an awesome option. That was an awesome path. And when my partner Dan and I decided that we wanted to move boxes and start this little storage business, they laughed. They laughed at us. They're like, what are you guys doing? In the first year we made, I think, $3,000 in profit. And it was not easy to see past our friends having the money and the freedom to do whatever they want. Well, they didn't really have the freedom. They were working a ton. But they had instant gratification. They could go work, they could get paid, they could climb the corporate ladder, they could go out for drinks, they could buy what they wanted, they could finance that new car, they could buy that new house. And here we were working on something that we knew wasn't going to pay us back for the first 2 to 3 years. So that was a very tough decision to make, and a decision that so few people were willing to make. We bought a $1,500 cargo van on Craigslist that was rusted out that our friends laughed at. My dad looked at me and said, Nick, what are you doing? You got an Ivy League degree and you're going to start a storage company, a little service business. It's not a new idea. It's not sexy. It's not a get rich quick. Like you're not going to be able to do anything with this. What are you doing? And here we are 5 years later where, I'm not a billionaire. I don't know if I'll ever be a billionaire, but we have $10 million worth of real estate that we own and manage. We have a service business that generates $300,000 to $500,000 a year that I'm not even involved in anymore. And we're on a path to build serious wealth and have freedom. More important than wealth is the freedom for me to do what I want to do when I want to do it, which is spend time with my family, which is build relationships with people that really matter to me, and build things in my career that I'm going to be proud of when I'm 80 to pass on to my kids and their kids and their kids. And most of it's going to be just mindsets and lessons and ways to think about the world that so few people understand. That's kind of my whole mission with this podcast, is just to pass on what I've learned on this 10-year journey. Going on 10 years. We've been at it for about 9 years now. What I've learned along the way about small business, about how starting and doing something not sexy, not fun, something small that your friends and people will laugh at, that's not a new idea. What do you mean? You're not because when people think about entrepreneurship, they think of Shark Tank. They think of new ideas. They think of new inventions. They think of Mark Zuckerberg. They think of Bill Gates. They think of Steve Jobs. They don't think about starting a storage company. They don't think about starting a waste management company. They don't think about starting a lawn care company, a power washing company, a painting company. They're like, what do you mean? People already do that. Why would you start that business? But those little, small, not new ideas can lead to life-changing wealth. And it's a journey, right? Entrepreneurship is a journey. If you're thinking about delayed gratification, yes, your power washing company may only be able to make you $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year, and maybe you go to another town and make $200,000 a year. But it might just lead to getting bigger contracts to clean parking lots for the government buildings, or maybe you're cleaning airports, or maybe you're cleaning, maybe you are kind of morph it and see an opportunity and change it into a janitorial company that cleans high-rise commercial real estate. And then maybe since you know so much about that commercial real estate, you can buy one of those pieces of property. That's what happened to me. I mean, we started a service business, picking up and delivering boxes, loading them up and down hallways, sweating. That just over time slowly morphed into self-storage, us owning and operating self-storage facilities. Entrepreneurship is a journey. You don't know where it's going to take you. But I can guarantee you that if you start to have success and you start to have some freedom and you start to build something worth having, doors will start to open. Your network will start to expand. The opportunities will grow. So where you start right now is not necessarily where you're going to be 5 years from now. You're making sacrifices now. You're delaying gratification now to build something that's going to be worth having 5 years from now, and build a life that you can be proud of. To where you're not just working for the man, driving an hour each way, doing something that you have to do to make your car payment, to make your house payment, to save for retirement. This is what 90% of Americans do. They work their whole lives to hopefully save up enough money to stop working someday when they're 65 or 70 years old and they don't have any energy to then enjoy life, looking forward to the weekends. Is that really what life is about? Just praying that Friday comes around so that you can drink 7 beers and go out with your buddies on Friday and then go to work hungover on Monday? I'm seeing a lot of people live that way right now, but that's not the life that I'm going to choose for myself. And I have this freedom, I have these opportunities because I made those sacrifices back 10 years ago, right? So people need to start playing a 10-year game. People need to say, what can I do right now to build a great life for myself 10 years from now? What kind of new mindsets, new lessons, new shifts in the way I perceive wealth, the way I perceive business, the way I perceive opportunity? What kind of new principles and mindsets and methods can I employ in my life that are going to be passed down from generation to generation, so that you can look back on your life as an 80-year-old and say, wow, I really moved our family forward. Our family started here, and now we're here. That's going to be a great feeling for you someday.